Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Marcelino. I'm the marketing coordinator for Green Energy Consumers Alliance. We'll be starting the presentation in about 5 minutes. We want to let some other people join if they're a little bit late. And during the presentation, if you have any technical issues or concerns, you can reach out to me in the questions panel. Most likely it's on the right side of your screen, and I will help the best I can. Also, we'll be launching a poll, so while you're waiting, if you could take a minute just to answer the question on what your primary heating fuel is, that would be great. Hi, everyone. For people who've just joined us, my name is Kate Marcelino. I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator for Green Energy Consumers Alliance. If you could take a minute to answer our quick poll, we will be getting started in just a minute. All right, Loie, I think we can get started. I'll share the results of the poll and we're good to go.
Hi, everyone. I am Loie Hayes. I'm the membership coordinator here at Green Energy Consumers Alliance, and we're talking today about heating system efficiency, one of the things I love to talk about. I'm not a professional in the heating industry, but I have been working on energy efficiency for many years now, and so I've gleaned some good tips. Let's see if I can share the poll. Kate, I'm seeing a message. Organizer must hide poll results to enable screen sharing. I don't see any poll results myself.
Okay, I can share them then. It looks like 58% is heating with oil, 29% with gas, 4% propane, 2% electric resistance baseboard, and 7% electric heat pump. And I'll stop sharing that now.
Great. All right. Thanks. I've noted that, and I'll try to address everyone's concerns as we go through. So this is the first of two workshops. The second one will be a repeat of the first, and we'll be sharing the video of one of those out to everybody who's registered. So no need to take notes during the webinar if you're wanting to get things like that. So after our introductions, we'll start off with simple steps to save energy. This would apply to everyone. Hot water and other renovations is something you don't want to ignore. And then we'll get into the heating upgrades themselves, and we'll close with time for questions. And say hello to our little friend Mookie. I think Mookie is the name of that little dog, patiently waiting for the results of a carbon monoxide test on that older heating equipment. So Green Energy Consumers Alliance, we've been around for a long time now, since 1982, and we started out as a heating oil buyers group, and we still offer that service to many of our members. We are pro-consumer, pro-environment from the get-go, and have branched out over the years into matching people's electricity use with green electricity generators in our region. Matching people with car dealers who are offering special discounts on electric vehicles, introducing people to reputable solar installers and reputable heat pump installers. We work primarily in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So what are the biggest energy uses in your home? Well, surprise, surprise, in New England, it's your heating. And a little bit your air conditioning that is going up. The latest data that we have from the census 2009, and it was just 1% at that point, but we can expect air conditioning will go up as our summers get hotter due to global warming. Your fridge and other appliances takes about another quarter of your energy bill, and your hot water heating is actually 16% as of this data. So again, you don't want to ignore the efficiencies that are possible in hot water and in all your appliances, your lighting, etc. The average heat usage, again, this is from Massachusetts DOER. They estimate that an oil heated home is 19,000 square feet on average, and that home uses about 700 gallons. The natural gas homes are a little bit smaller on average, according to the Massachusetts data, and they're using 656 therms per year. You want to, keep these numbers as a rough ballpark when you're trying to figure out how does your home compare to the average. One good tool that I discovered recently is on the EPA website, the Home Energy Yardstick, where you can put in, some of the details about your home and find out how you're doing. In general, The better insulation you have and the higher efficiency equipment you have, the less energy you need to stay comfortable. So first steps, these are easy do-it-yourself things. Changing that furnace filter if you have a furnace. Making sure that the water tank temperature is um, as low as it can be and still supply the hot water that you need. If you're getting scalding water from any of your faucets, you could be saving money by turning the temperature down on your water tank. Using mastic, if you have ductwork, this in the lower right corner, this gray paint stuff is called mastic, and that seals all the seams and makes sure there's no air getting out of those seams. So painting on mastic and insulating those air ducts is a cost-effective DIY task. Air sealing your basement around the windows and all the doors, making sure you've gotten a good tight seal so there's no wind that can whistle through those gaps. That's a good hands-on task for a homeowner or even a renter. Hot water pipe insulation, very inexpensive and cost effective, particularly close to the tank itself where the water is so hot, but you can do the entire run of the hot water pipe from the tank to where it disappears into the walls as well. The annual tune-up now for heating oil, it used to be crucial to have a tune-up every year. Now you can stretch it out to 14 months, 16 months, roughly every 700 to 800 gallons. You want to get a tune-up. The oil that we're burning now is much cleaner than the oil we used to burn. And if you have a natural gas system, you can wait to possibly even 3 years between tune-ups. You definitely want to get an energy assessment or a heating assessment if you have not gotten one in recent years. This is something that you pay into on your utility bill unless you're living in a town with a municipal electric plant where you may not have that charge. But if you are a customer of one of the major utilities, you're paying into it every month. And this is the first step to become eligible for any of the other program incentives. They need to have, a record of what your house profile is like before they'll give you money to make it more efficient. They'll also give you the free light bulbs, power strips, thermostats. You get independent professional advice. In Massachusetts, it's called Mass Save. In Rhode Island, Energy Wise Rhode Island. And again, if you have a municipal electricity plant, call your town office and ask them, do they do free home energy assessments and that type of thing, and what are the incentives that they offer for energy efficiency. And now, thanks to COVID, you can do these all virtually. I think not the heating assessment, but the home energy assessment you can do virtually with just using a camera phone or an iPad. Now, when you're thinking about a hot water replacement, you want to plan ahead so that you're not stuck with a leaky tank in the basement and you need to get something fixed right away. So you're going to take whatever the emergency repair person has available to them, and it may not be the most efficient thing. So definitely plan ahead. If you have a standard storage tank, you want to flush that annually. If it's been many years, you may get little calcium that clogs up that drain. Um, but in my case, I found, yes, it dripped for a little bit because the calcium deposits prevented the valve from being closed. But in a couple of days, it had stopped dripping. I just had a bucket underneath it. And then I was able to close that drain all the way. And that definitely will extend the life of your system if you do flush it annually. If you're thinking about replacing a standard storage tank, get one that has 2 anode rods. The anode rods are those sacrifice bars that live in the tank and get slowly eaten away so that it prevents the tank itself from being destructed through the chemical interaction that's happening inside the tank. So get 2 anode rods and you'll have the tank for longer, get more money out of your investment. If you're thinking about replacing a boiler and you don't yet have an indirect system, the indirect systems are more efficient. The illustration here is an indirect system. This greenish, grayish box is your boiler, and there are actual pipes that connect the storage tank to the boiler, and that hot water from your boiler passes through the storage tank in a heat exchanger and essentially gives you free heat, free hot water for all the months that you have the boiler running to provide heat. And even though it does need to run in the summer then to provide the hot water that you need in the summer months, the free hot water in the winter more than pays for that firing up of the boiler in the summer. Now, if you're heating your hot water with electricity now with an electric storage tank, do consider getting a heat pump hot water heater. These are more efficient and will definitely save you money over the long term. When it comes time to think about bigger projects, insulation, air sealing, heating system replacement, re-roofing, re-siding, and heat recovery ventilation, definitely get the information from those energy efficiency programs. First, figure out what benefits you can apply for in the case of insulation in the state of Massachusetts. And I think this is true now in Rhode Island as well. It's a 75% off incentive, and there's no limit on that. There used to be a cap on how much they would give you. So that's a really great incentive that you want to take advantage of. And the more insulation you add, even if you already have insulation, if you can add more, say to your attic, the smaller the heating system, the next heating system that you purchase will be. Now, there are some common barriers to insulation. If you have a building that has a brick exterior or asphalt siding or asbestos shingles, this bottom illustration is the asbestos shingles. If you have any of those, you've probably had difficulty getting insulation. Also, if you have knob and tube wiring, these porcelain knobs and tubes may be visible in your home with or without wires. In Massachusetts, even if you have the porcelain without the wires connecting them, you need to have an electrician sign off before the program will pay for insulating your building. The same with if you have in your attic vermiculite, or if you have asbestos clad heating equipment in your basement, all of those things are going to be barriers. And fortunately, there is a program in Massachusetts called the Barrier Mitigation Grants. It's a subset of the expanded heat loan. Pardon my dry throat. And it is a great program for addressing these issues and tapping into more funding to be able to get past those barriers. In Rhode Island, there may be funding as well for some or all of these, and the best program to reach out to, I think, is the Rhode Island New Construction Program. And I'm giving you the URL and the phone number here, as well as the Massachusetts Renovations and Additions Program. And again, we'll be sending out these slides. So you'll have these. Now, when it comes time to think about heating equipment replacement, you do want to plan ahead. You do want to get 3 competing quotes if you can. This is a big project and will be, expensive, and you want to make sure that you're getting the best pricing and the best design possible. Now, fortunately, both states have contractor lists, so you can know that you're getting a trusted and qualified contractor if you use these websites. Um, in Rhode Island, I'm giving you the Rhode Island heat pump contractor list, but again, these are going to be qualified HVAC companies. In both states, I believe some rebates are dependent on your using one of their qualified contractors, one of the contractors that they have deemed eligible to apply for those rebates. So you want to make sure before you begin work, is the work going to be incentivized if you use, whatever contractor it is that you prefer to use. So that's one of the things to ask these 3 contractors. And I suggest a good resource for planning when to replace various equipment is the planning guide that's been produced by Mass Clean Energy Center, Mass CEC. They're running a program called Go Clean, and this is the URL that you can find that planning guide. There's a lot of other resources there, but this planning guide is particularly useful, I think, for just recording all the equipment that you have in your home that uses fossil fuels, when the expected lifespan of those pieces of equipment will expire, and other considerations so you can plan ahead. This will help you get, once you have those 3 competing quotes, you'll be able to have a sense of what the installation costs is going to be on that new equipment. And then you want to add to that installation cost the operating cost. So the installation costs are your, first year costs on that piece of equipment that you may have for 10 or 15 or 20 years. The operating cost is how much you might expect that piece of equipment to need to operate. And I want to call attention to the first column. This shows all the different types of heating oil, heating fuel. Air source heat pumps are running on electricity, natural gas, electric heat, electric resistance heat, heating oil, and propane. And then I want to call your attention to this next to last column, equalized cost per 1,000 square feet. So you can use the size of your home to adjust these numbers to project what the operating cost will be over the lifetime of that equipment. I'll also call your attention to this change from last year column. Electricity for air source heat pumps went up 1%. Electric resistance about 3%. I'm not sure what the difference is between these two. I didn't get into the weeds on this data from Mass DOER. But I'll point out that the natural gas went up 11% in the last year. And while this may just be a blip in this year, I have read federal energy data showing that natural gas is expected to rise more precipitously in the coming decade than electricity itself. So you want to take that into consideration, perhaps. With heating oil and propane, those are going to bop up and down. It's kind of harder to project. But again, you can go to the federal energy forecast and see what they're projecting in terms of those costs in the long term. If you're currently using heating oil and you're considering converting to gas, we recommend that you consider some of these factors. Be sure to get an estimate for the cost of the removal of the tank and the removal of the oil that's in the tank. You ideally want to plan ahead enough so that you can use up that oil as much as possible before the before the tank removal. And even if you have some gas in the house, say for your hot water heater or something, you want to be sure to get an estimate for the cost of bringing the gas all the way to the new equipment. If you're adding gas equipment, you may have to replace the size of the gas pipe in your basement. You may need to work with the utility company to bring the gas to the house altogether. And we also ask you to look at the environmental cost of the methane leaks from the wellhead to your home. These greatly increase the environmental impact of the natural gas. Natural gas is cleaner burning in the home. There's less carbon emissions emitted, from that moment of ignition in the home. But the leaks of the methane, which is the chemical composition of the natural gas, all along under your streets and at the various plants along the way between you and the wellhead itself. And there are a lot of environmental impacts there. Now looking at conversion to electric heat pumps, just to give you an overview of what electric heat pumps are. Mini splits is a name that's often used to describe a heat pump, a particular heat pump configuration. This illustration that we have here shows a mini split. You can also get whole home heat pumps that work with your existing furnace equipment. You can have the compressor part can be either just outside your home, as most commonly done and as illustrated here, or it could be buried in the ground in terms of a ground source or geothermal heat pump. If you've heard that these are not very efficient, that is based on old style heat pumps that were very common in the US South and the West in milder climates. But for more than a decade now, we've had cold climate specific heat pumps that are very efficient down to very cold temperatures. These can be a carbon-free source of heat because it's electricity and you can match that electricity usage with clean renewable energy that's brought into the grid, either by your own solar panels or by buying renewable energy certificates that match your energy use, as through our program, the Green Powered program. It is the most efficient form of cooling. So if your home needs cooling, this is a really good option. And there's potential improvement in your resale value. If you're thinking, oh, I would do that, but I'm going to move and thus not be able to take advantage of it. There is some data now showing that resale value increases when you add a heat pump to a home, because they are so efficient. Now, heat pumps are most cost effective for homes with an open common area where you can use one heat pump to heat and air condition a large open area. In homes that have a need for air conditioning, if you've been suffering without air conditioning and wanting it, or if you have an older central air system, then a heat pump is a good option for you to consider. You do need to have space outside for the condenser, either the geothermal if you're in a rural area where you can get a backhoe and a whole construction team onto your property where the system would be buried, or even if you're living in an urban area, some people just don't have that much space around the outside of the building. Some triple deckers, they're putting a condenser on each of the back porches. So it is possible, but there does need to be that consideration. And again, solar panels, if you have solar panels on your home, then heat pumps will be that much more cost competitive because you're the producer of those kilowatts. There's no middle person taking their cut on the cost of your electricity. With gas heat, most often heat pumps are not going to be financially competitive. But if you have solar panels, then they could very well be cost competitive. And if you have an older central air system, then or if you need to install central air to an existing ductwork system, then a heat pump could be cost effective with gas heat. And of course, these are just generalities that I'm saying. Again, you would want to get 3 quotes from certified installers to actually see would it be cost effective in your home, given your home's particular configuration and heating and cooling needs. So I'm going to wrap up my slides now. And then we'll take questions. If you want to see more webinars from green energy consumers, you can always find them on our website. And you can find our recorded webinars on YouTube. We have our own channel. And this is that URL again. You'll get a copy of these slides. We do ask you to donate if you can to support our nonprofit mission. Donations are being matched in March. We use the donations to support our advocacy work. We do a lot of work in the state houses in Rhode Island and Massachusetts for pushing for strong and equitable climate policy, and we help organize whole coalitions of groups to do that same work. Our Drive Green program makes electric vehicles more accessible to everyone. And our Green Municipal Aggregation program is helping entire municipalities offer green electricity at lower rates, most often to their residents and small businesses. So we welcome donations for those purposes. And now I'm happy to take your questions. Kate, if you could read what people have submitted in the question box, and then feel free to, if you have more questions, just keep typing them into the question box, and we'll take your questions.
The first question we have here is, would you recommend the use of biofuel in an oil system?
I do recommend biofuel because it burns cleaner and has potentially less impact on the environment because of that cleaner burn. It will make your equipment cleaner, but there is one caveat, and that is the cleanliness of biofuel is because it actually is a solvent, like a detergent, and it breaks up clumps of oil that have been accumulating in your oil tank. And if you put too high of a concentration of biofuel in your tank all at once, it could free up a lot of that stuff, and little clots would start going down the fuel lines and clogging up your filters. So that has been a problem for some people. And there are dealers who exceed the recommended level of biofuel in the mix that they deliver to people. So we recommend capping your mix at 20% biofuel. But we do have dealers in both Massachusetts and Rhode Island who are responsible biofuel distributors. And if you happen to live in areas where they serve, we're happy to connect you to them.
Next question is, what is the typical cost of a single mini split in Massachusetts?
The purchase cost is about in the neighborhood of, again, this is highly variable depending on the size that you need, et cetera, but on the order of 3,000 to 5,000 for a single head mini split heat pump. And the incentives are now in both states, I believe, between $1,000 and $1,250 per ton. I should have clarified that 3,000 to 5,000 is the cost for a ton or a ton and a half, potentially a 2-ton system, and a ton is a measurement of heating capacity. I believe it is 12,000 BTUs. But I could follow up with you on that. So yeah, you're looking at a typical cost between 3,000 to 5,000 for a single head system, and a rebate of at least $1,000, perhaps as much as a third of your installation cost will be rebated to you.
How do we find a good provider for an estimate for a whole home heat pump in Western Massachusetts?
The Mass Save website. I can go back to that URL if I can figure out a way to go up. Yes, there we go. There, masssave.com/en for English. Now the Mass Save website is in Spanish and French, I believe, at least 2 other languages, and then learn and then find a contractor. You can use the search field for just contractor or find a contractor, and it'll pop up. And then under that, you have 3 different categories of contractors, and the bottom category is HVAC or AC check. But those are going to be the people who are certified to bill Mass Save or submit rebate requests to Mass Save for heat pumps. And you'll get a list probably more people than you would want to call. And the first question you should ask them is, do they install whole home systems in addition to mini splits? Because there are more people who install mini splits only than there are who install central heat pump systems, whole house heat pump systems.
Next question is, we're on a private well for water source. We have an oil-fired boiler for hot water. It takes many minutes to get hot water at any faucet. Is there any responsible way to get hot water quickly?
You have a private well, and what was the hot water system, Kate?
Oil-fired boiler.
Well, anything that you could do to insulate the pipes would help. You could potentially turn up the heat on the hot water tank. Kate, did they say anything? Did they have a standalone tank?
It didn't specify.
Okay. So turning up the temperature on the tank, if you have that option. And I can't think of other ways to speed the arrival of that hot water from the tank to the faucet. I know there are some systems that are designed to conserve water that have a loop that runs that cold water back to the furnace while it's cold, and then once it gets hot, delivers that to you. But that's, I think, more primarily to conserve water than it is to bring the hot water to you more quickly. But good question, and I'll keep an eye out. Put your contact information if you don't already have it in the, I assume you have it with your question. I can follow up with you if I have any other insights on that, if I have any other resources to share.
Next question is, can any of the heat pump options be used to replace an oil-fired boiler with baseboards?
Haha, the $1 million question. Bing, 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 bing. um, so hot water baseboard is a hydronic system, and it is designed to have a certain relatively high temperature water going through those baseboards. And hydronic heat pumps, which do exist, although they're only now becoming, commercially distributed in Massachusetts or in the United States, to my knowledge. The hydronic heat pumps exist, but essentially you have to add more radiators or more feet of baseboard, because the heat pump is not going to heat water to the same high temperature that your boiler currently does. That said, you could augment your boiler with mini splits. And there are what are called smart controls or integrated controls that allow the two thermostats, the heat pump thermostat and the boiler thermostat, to toggle back and forth, control which system is operating more efficiently at this moment, gets to control, their operating system, and the other one stands back to allow it to work. So that is one option to consider, is augmenting your existing boiler. In essence, you would leave the boiler thermostat at 10 degrees less than your heat pump thermostat, and the heat pump would provide heat until whatever specific temperature you decide the outside temperature might be. You could say, when it gets to 40 degrees, I want the boiler to take over. When it gets to 30 degrees, 20 degrees, 10 degrees, whatever calibration point you decide, then the integrated controls would switch which system was providing your heat. So that's one way to transition from a hydronic heating system that's fossil fuel fed to a heat pump that could be renewable. And eventually there may be more hydronic heat pumps that do heat the water that goes to your baseboard system. And again, you could either add feet of baseboard or radiators of some sort to make that effective at keeping your home warm. Next question.
So if somebody is considering switching from oil to an ASHP, do you recommend having an engineer design the system first before getting 3 contractor quotes?
No, I don't think you need an engineer. Obviously, if you are an engineer or your sister-in-law is an engineer, it wouldn't hurt. But generally, the heat pump contractors will be knowledgeable enough to give you a sophisticated design. That might be something that you ask when you make your contact calls with potential installers. Who does the system design and how much experience do they have doing the system design, and have they designed any heat pump systems for homes like yours, whatever your particular layout or existing system is. But no, I don't think you need to get an engineer to design your system first.
Next question is, what is the average break even in years for removing oil tank and adding an electric heat pump to an existing AC unit?
Wow. I do not know. But let me try to do some research on that and see if there is any data that's available. And if anybody else happens to have that data at your fingertips and you're listening today, please put a note in the chat or the questions and help consult on the question. But no, I don't know that offhand.
Next question is, do you have any recommendations for heat pump brands for both heat and AC, heat/AC and water?
No, I don't have preferred brands.
How does an air source heat pump compare with a ground source efficiency-wise?
On the preferred brands, I'll just add one caveat on that is if you're thinking about, if you're researching brands and you want to get one that's highly efficient, make sure that you know who is going to maintain that system. Is it is the company who's installing it do they offer maintenance contracts or what's going to happen there, because I have known people who've bought equipment that then they had difficulty maintaining because it was so high efficient and so unusual. I'm sorry, Kate, remind me what that other question was.
Yep. How does an air source heat pump compare with ground source efficiency-wise?
Ground source is more efficient. The temperature underground stays a good consistent 50 degrees. So bringing water that's sitting in the ground or a refrigerant that's sitting in the ground at 50 degrees up to 70 or 90 or whatever it is that the heat pump wants to get it to is a much smaller lift than the refrigerant that's sitting outdoors above ground at 0 degrees. So yeah, the ground source is more efficient. It's much more costly as well, but they are cost effective if you have the capital to pay for the installation and and a good company to do the installation and a good design for it. The ground source is more efficient.
Next question is, when will all gas and oil burning need to end? And so when do I need to convert to electricity?
I believe both states have set goals to be carbon neutral by 2050. So you may very well be able to, buy another fossil fuel heating replacement in the next decade and still be able to meet that 2050 guideline. But as we all know, climate change is becoming is impacting more and more people every year. So the sooner you can make the conversion, the better for everywhere and everyone, from us to the poor Bangladeshis and Indonesians who are being inundated on a regular basis.
Next question is, if one wishes to air condition a house of 2,000 square feet and oil-fired baseboard heat, is it more responsible to install a mini split system rather than install central AC?
Another tricky question. Let me take notes on this one. Kate, repeat it again.
A They want to air condition a house of 2,000 square feet and oil-fired baseboard heat. Is it more responsible to install a mini split system rather than install central air conditioning?
Well, I think that would, I would get quotes for both. Installing central AC is, a complicated and costly project, depending on the home design. It may be easy in a, in some homes. Um, so I would take a look at proposals for both, and the the difficulty of providing AC with heat pumps is often in the number of bedrooms that you're trying to cover, because essentially any room where you close the door, you're going to need to have a head for that mini split system, or likewise a duct coming in. Now there are what are sometimes called mini duct heat pump systems, where you would have a heat pump that's essentially hidden in the ceiling, and two little vents coming into adjoining rooms. So if you had two small bedrooms that were adjoining, you may be able to use a ceiling cassette, and mini ducts coming into those two rooms next to it, and avoid the cost of a head in each room, or a duct into each room. Um, my guess is that mini splits would be the way to go, rather than adding ductwork. But again, you'd have to get contractors to evaluate the cost of those two options. And in
Next
terms of
question.
the environmental responsibility, it'll be essentially the same. The amount of energy that's needed to heat and cool those rooms is going to be essentially the same, whether it's delivered via a central system or mini splits. Go ahead,
Next
Kate.
question is, we just installed mini splits in solar. Reason was to get air conditioning in majority of house to replace through the wall units. We have oil heat, forced hot water. We like the moist heat better than that from mini splits, so we're likely to stay with oil, but the boiler is old and may not have much life yet. What options do we have when that time comes? Natural gas is not available. Are there other technologies we should consider?
You have a forced hot water system.
Oil heat
Yeah,
and
you may be a candidate for one of the hydronic heat pumps, because you already have the mini splits installed. Um, I mentioned that drawback from the hydronic heat pumps being that they don't deliver as much heat, because the water, that they're pumping through your pipes is not as high. If you had the mini splits already installed, then a hydronic heat pump may deliver adequate heat and provide that moist heat that you're looking for, and that more uh, even heat, than what you get from the mini splits, which are um, blowing hot air and creating a bit of a draft. So yeah, look into that. I definitely would call the major renovations program in your state, to talk about that question, and use their heat pump contractor list to find a candidate who potentially find a candidate who has experience installing the hydronic systems. Again, they're so new that I think there are only relatively few companies in either of our states that have experience with the hydronics.
Next question is, if I live in a town that does not pay into the Mass Save program, how can I access an energy audit, air sealing, and insulation?
Call your town office, or call the office of your town's electricity generation plant. Many towns have programs to provide the energy audits and incentives. Some don't. There is now legislation proposed to require the municipal electricity companies to participate in the statewide energy efficiency programs. So that situation might potentially improve for consumers in those towns. But at this point, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever it is your town has decided to provide. There are also statewide consortiums of those municipal heating plants to offer energy efficiency. But that would be, you'd find that out by calling the electricity office or the town office itself.
What are the incentives for going from oil to ground source heat pump, and when will that be changing?
The incentives have, so the incentives just went up for Rhode Island residents. If you're calling from Rhode Island, if you're from Rhode Island, you definitely want to look at the this URL that I have on the screen right now, the RI heat pump URL. In Massachusetts, it's been a very steady incentive for a couple of years now. It's essentially it's either 1,000 or 12,050 for oil heat conversion to heat pumps, and that's per ton. So you may end up getting a 4-ton system, and get a a $4,000 or $5,000 rebate. So they're pretty significant, and I don't think that they're likely to change this year in Massachusetts. We're not in Massachusetts. Energy efficiency plans are written in 3-year increments, and we're not in a year of change. So I expect that will remain steady.
Next question is, we live in a large Victorian home with central air and are thinking of converting from oil to gas. The estimate we got on heat pumps involved installing vents in the ceilings and walls of many rooms and not using the central air vents. Is this the way it works?
Not necessarily. I would call other heat pump installation companies and ask specifically if they have experience with adding a heat pump to an existing ductwork. There may very well be the possibility of adding a heat pump to that existing ductwork. It would certainly be a shame to cut into all that Victorian detail to add heat pumps, although people have done it. If you look on the Mass CEC website, this website URL that I have up on the screen, goclean.masscec.com, if you poke around, you'll find videos, and that will include videos of at least one family that converted their Victorian to heat pumps. I can't remember what heating fuel they had and if it was a furnace or a boiler. But yeah, you should keep searching. I don't think that that's the be all and end all, that you've been told that you would have to install mini splits and ceiling cassettes and things.
So we have a few more minutes and probably time for a couple more questions, and I apologize if we don't get to yours. We can follow up with any remaining questions after the webinar. But next question is, we have a Cape with low ceilings. We're very interested in heat pumps, but all the ones we see are large units that would have air blowing into our faces. Is there an alternative? Can a ceiling mounted heat pump work in a Cape with no walk-up attic, for instance?
No, you're not likely to be able to get a ceiling mount if you have no access to the attic. But you can get ground mounted heads. What the air blower can be mounted on the floor rather than at head height. I believe they're called floor mounted, and it's basically radiator sized, so they're fairly big, but that's an alternative, and one that might very well work for you.
And I think last question that we can answer is, I live in a condo for of 700 square feet with a gas boiler and hot water heater. Should I consider upgrading to the different system described here using the boiler, or is there a dual unit that should upgrade the whole system to improve efficiency of the boiler, which is at 15 years old?
Well, you should definitely think about the replacement of the boiler, because at 15 years old, it may last a good long while, but it may not, depending on its make and model, etc. It's a boiler, so you've got baseboard or radiators. You may be able to get a hydronic replacement of that boiler by the time it's needed. And again, using these find a contractor sites from the utilities are a good way to start to call through that list and find out, have you ever installed a hydronic heat pump? We're looking for a company that has experience doing that. And be specific that you want the hydronic system, hydronic heat pump. Alternatively, a 700 square foot condo might possibly be adequately heated by just a couple or 3 heat pump heads, mini splits. So if there is space outdoors for a condenser, you could inquire with installers about the potential for, is there space? Can they configure something that would bring the adequate heat that you need with a mini split system that would be affordable? 700 square feet. It depends really on how many tiny bedrooms there are. Also, you can remember, this may not be sound like a great idea to people who've always heard how expensive electric heat is, but a heat pump system that has a little bit of electric resistance baseboard, say in a bathroom, where one small strip of electric resistance baseboard that you turn on when you need it in there and leave off for the most time can be very economical. And ditto if you have, say, a small child's bedroom, you could turn it on for the time period that it's needed and keep it off. Otherwise, that's an alternative to installing a head in each room. You could take the smallest rooms and just put in an electric resistance baseboard in that room. So yeah, I'm happy to follow up with any of you. If you have more questions or if I didn't answer your question adequately, I'll put my, there's my Loie at greenenergyconsumers.org. I so appreciate your time spending it with us, and remain committed to doing what I can to help you to move the speed forward of the transition to renewable energy, and to make it affordable and pragmatic. We don't think the transition to renewable energy will succeed if it's not pragmatic and affordable for the average person. So thanks very much. Anything else from you, Kate?
Nope, good on my end. And I'll follow up with you with any additional questions.
Great. Thanks so much. I'll let you close us out, Kate.
All right.
Bye-bye, all.